Good morning and welcome to the Confronting Apostasy program. I'm your host, Brian DeLorean. I thank you all for tuning into the program today. And on today's program, I'm going to be presenting the third and final installment of this teaching series entitled Methods of Interpreting Revelation. For the past two nights, I've been discussing the 5 methods of interpreting the book of Revelation. The methods are the idealist view, the historicist view, the preterist view, the moderate futurist view, and the mostly futuristic view. And there's only one correct method of interpreting the book of Revelation. They all can't be correct. And so 4 of these are problematic and incorrect ways to interpret the book of Revelation. And the most problematic of those 4, in my opinion, is the preterist view, which I dealt very heavily with in the past 2 programs. I felt like it was necessary to get that out of the way because I had to devote so much time to it. The others don't take nearly as much time to explain. And so I'm going to now begin to talk about the other 4 methods of interpretation Revelation, 3 of which are incorrect, and the one is the correct view, and you'll find out at the end of the program which one that is. So I'm going to be actually doing what I did last night, reading from a article posted online. This can be found at Bible.org, and it's Bible.org/article/interpretive models book of Revelation, and that is the title of the article, Interpretive Models for the Book of Revelation as a Whole. And so the first method of interpretation that we're going to consider is the historicist method of interpretation, apparently made much of by the Reformers. The Reformers were John Calvin, Jonathan Edwards, Martin Luther, and people like that. Those were the Reformers, and they subscribe to this view of interpreting Revelation. And in this understanding of the book, and now I'm beginning to read from the article itself, in this understanding of the book, the events described therein refer to actual events from the beginning of the church until the time of the interpreter. Thus, the Reformers could say that the Roman papacy was the Antichrist, entrenched in its false doctrine and deception. According to Mounce, who is another Bible commentator, in this view, the apocalypse was held to sketch the history of Western Europe through the various popes, the Protestant Reformation, the French Revolution, and individual leaders such as Charlemagne and Mussolini. Apparently, the method had a somewhat spurious beginning with a monastic is a monk, named Joachim of Flores, and overall is open to several criticisms. Perhaps the most damaging critique is the fact that such an interpretive framework for the book leads to endless speculation and subjectivity in its interpretation. It is simply very difficult to arrive at a consensus in the identification of reference in history for the symbols in the text. So in other words, you can't arrive at any definitive conclusion about any of the symbols in the book of Revelation by using this method of interpretation. The second of our methods under consideration is what is known as the idealist method. In this understanding, the contents of the book are not seen to relate to any historical events at all, but only to symbolize the ongoing struggle between good and evil during the church age until Christ returns. Johnson, another Bible commentator, says that as a system of interpretation, it is more recent of the three other preterist, historicist, and futuristic schools, and somewhat more difficult to distinguish from earlier allegorizing approaches of the Alexandrians, Clement and Origen. In general, the idealist view is marked by a refusal to identify any of the images with specific future events, whether in the history of the church or with regard to the end of all things. So that is, again, another incorrect method of interpreting the book of Revelation, simply because, again, you cannot say with any degree of certainty what certain symbols mean. Okay, we will now move on to the third method of interpretation, which is the preterist view, which I discussed on the last two programs, and it's simply a view that relegates all Bible prophecy as taking place or being fulfilled, rather, in the year AD 70, which is the year which the Roman general Titus invaded Jerusalem and destroyed it. Somehow the preterists, using various allegories and spurious methods of interpretation, have managed to take all Bible prophecy that's written in the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, and other portions of the Bible, and make its fulfillment take place in AD 70. And I've explained that in great detail, but suffice it to say that it's a very problematic, and really, of all the methods of interpretation that are incorrect, it's the most problematic, and it just has absolutely no basis in fact, really. And so I discussed that last night, so I don't want to get into it too heavily tonight. I want to move on to the next one for the sake of time. But suffice it to say that preterism relegates all Bible prophecy to the past. It's already in their mind been fulfilled, and therefore they really rob the book of Revelation of any future fulfillment. And so this is something that is just not scriptural. And I mean, I've explained last night and the night before why it's such a problematic view, and how, truthfully, in my opinion, I really can't see how any thinking person who is a Christian, who names the name of Christ, could accept this view or this method of interpreting the book of Revelation, because it really makes no logical sense to do so. Okay, now the fourth method under consideration is the mostly futuristic method. In chapter 3:10, the Lord says to the church at Philadelphia that they will be kept from the hour of trial to come upon the earth. This is a literary, programmatic statement wherein the hour of trial refers to the judgments described by John from chapter 6 through chapter 18 of the book of Revelation. According to John, the church at Philadelphia will not even enter that tribulation. If you remember, any of you who have studied the book of Revelation, among the 7 churches that were addressed by Jesus, only the church of Smyrna and the church of Philadelphia did not receive any rebuke from him. So what I take this to mean is that the truly genuine Bible-believing Christians who are living for the Lord are going to be caught up in the rapture, and therefore will not enter into the 7-year tribulation period to take place after the rapture occurs. So that's what this is about here, about the Church of Philadelphia. Continuing on with this method of interpretation, Walvoord, who's another Bible commentator, argues that it is unlikely that just the Church at Philadelphia is ultimately in mind here. Surely it must be the church as a worldwide body, which is what I just said. It would deal with anyone who is living for the Lord at the time of the rapture. And the Bible stresses that and emphasizes living in holiness for the very fact that you don't know when the Lord will return. And if you're living in a manner that's displeasing to Him, you are going to miss the rapture of the church, and you are going to go into the tribulation period, which is a horrible, horrible time on the earth. Jesus said there was no time before it, and there will be no time after it. This is the worst time in the history of mankind when it does occur. So this is for the Bible-believing Christians who live for the Lord. They will escape that time. That's what John Walvoord is saying. Okay. Then the seals, trumpets, and bowl judgments, chapter 6 through 16, which in this system are referred to as a time of Jacob's trouble, are all future and occur after the rapture of the church. They relate directly to Daniel's 70th week. And if you want to read up on that, you can go to Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 through 7, and read that. A 7-year period, the 70th week of Daniel, is, if you read the book of Daniel, I guess I might as well explain it very quickly. There was 77s. Daniel received this vision from the Lord that there was 490 years in which God was going to be dealing with the nation of Israel, and there was the time for that to start. Was when the wall was being built, and it continues on to the time of the Messiah. So that's a period of 483 years. But after Jesus ascended back to heaven, the prophetic time clock was stopped, and there's a remaining 7-year period that God is going to, in which God is going to deal with the Jews, the Jewish people, and that has yet to happen, and that is what the tribulation period is. This is the final 7 years that God has allotted to dealing with the Jewish people. So that's what the tribulation period is all about. And it's also referred to, I think I read already, the time of Jacob's trouble. And so Walvoord views the seal judgments, the bowl judgments, the seal judgments, the trumpet judgments, and the bowl judgments in chronologically sequential order. That is, after the seal judgments come the trumpet judgments, and finally the bowl judgments. These all occur in the last 3.5 years of the 7-year period of Daniel's 70th week. The end result of this great tribulation is the destruction of ecclesiastical and political Babylon. Then Christ will return with the church and set up his kingdom. And then the fifth view, and the one that is very similar, but there are problems with this, is the moderate futuristic view. And a commentator by Ladd has written, according to Ladd, an answer to the problem of the relationship of the seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments to to one another could provide the solution to the view of history affirmed in the book. With that in mind, he proposes that the seal judgments represent the forces in history, however long it lasts, by which God works out his redemptive and judicial purposes leading up to the end. Therefore, Ladd understands the seal judgments to be going on throughout the church age, and the trumpet and bowl judgments really from Revelation chapter 7 onward to be concerned with the time of the consummation. The primary reason he argues in this fashion is because the contents of the book cannot be opened until the last seal. That's chapter 6, verse 16 and 17. And they explicitly say that the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? This text, according to Ladd, suggests that it had not yet arrived until the sixth seal was broken. Further, Ladd understands the seal judgments to parallel the woes outlined in Matthew chapter 24, and that the white horse in Revelation should be understood to be the victories won by the gospel in an age characterized by evil and death. There are several problems with this view of Revelation chapter 6. First, it is unlikely for several reasons that the rider and the white horse are to be associated with Christ and the gospel. It is true, as Ladd points out, that white is generally associated with spiritual victory and revelation, but the identification of the rider and in chapter 6, verse 2, rests partially on parallels with the rider in chapter 19, verse 11. They are similar in that they are both on white horses, but the parallel is difficult to maintain beyond this. The rider in 6:2 has a bow and a crown and is bent on conquest. The rider in chapter 19, verse 11, is judging to effect justice. Therefore, the purpose and context for their actions are different. Also, the language of was given is used of divine permission given to evil powers to carry out their destruction. Therefore, its use in chapter 6, verse 2 would tend to argue for the writer and his mission relating to some form of evil, perhaps military invasion, with the crown symbolizing eventual rulership over conquered peoples. Yet another thorn in the side of Ladd's theory is the fact that chapter 6, verse 2 is part of a series of judgments and calamities, and it is difficult to believe that it could refer to the gospel going forth. Chapter 6 and the sealed judgments represent profound judgment, not salvation. Finally, this interpretation of the writer in chapter 6, verse 2 seems to promote confusion between Christ opening the seals and also being the one sent forth as the first rider. So that's the problems with the moderate futuristic view. For reasons outlined above, the historical and idealist views seem untenable. The preterist method of interpreting the book cannot adequately deal with the text as a prophetic piece whose many prophecies simply cannot be matched with any known fulfillment in the author's lifetime. The association of the book with Jewish apocalyptic materials is not completely adequate and therefore remains an unreasonable ground for rejecting the futuristic aspects of the book. The moderately futuristic view has much to commend in that it sees both the historical setting and the futurist playing a role in John's work. The identification of the sealed judgments with the church age, however, is dubious for the reasons mentioned, and therefore the method as a whole remains spurious. Perhaps the best model is that which takes into account the historical setting of the book and yet sees the seals, trumpets, and bowls as relating to a future time near the consummation. Such a model makes the best sense of chapter 3, verse 10, and realizes that the calamities to come on the earth are greater than anything seen to date. The mostly futuristic method is such a model. So there you have it. That's what you've been waiting for 3 days. The mostly futuristic method of interpreting the book of Revelation is the correct methoding for interpreting the book. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the program. I thank you all for tuning in and listening to this. I hope it's helped you. Once again, you can go to thebible.org /articles/interpretive, let me make sure I get this right. Interpretive Models Book of Revelation. You type that search term in, and it'll bring up this site and this article, and you can read it for yourself. Again, I hope you've been blessed by this, and I, again, thank you for listening. And the website for this program is confrontingapostasy.com. Our sister site is apostasywarning.org. By the way, both of those sites are currently getting an aesthetic makeover, so they're going to look a lot better than they have. They've really improved my website company, that is, has really improved the colors and the way I am able to edit my website, so they look really great. And of course, there is now a new website called theapocalypseunveiled.com. That site is currently under construction, although I already have some content uploaded to the site that I feel that you will find to be a blessing. And keep coming back to this site daily, because I'm going to be constantly updating it and putting new content on it. I have a lot of work to do till I'm finished. But this is a site devoted strictly to the study of the book of Revelation, and I believe that you will find this site to be a blessing. And with that, I'm going to say good night, and until we meet again, I leave you with this reminder to keep the faith and defend the truth. Have a good night, everybody.
In Zion, Zion, sound the alarm.